What's up, guys? It's that time of the year where you guys are going to start jacking them on lipless, or you got to start prepping for that time of the year to be coming right around the corner. So today we're going to do a quick little lipless breakdown. We're going to talk about our favorite baits. We're going to talk about the gear that you need to throw them, and just have an open conversation about some really dope lipless baits that make a lot of noise and some that don't. So if you want to join, let's go. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. The Hookup Tackle is the world's largest showcase of Megabass products, featuring baits and colors not found at any other dealer. The Hookup also offers a wide display of OSP, Evergreen, Deps, Lucky Craft, Jackall, and many more. The Hookup Tackle is owned and operated by family, is staffed by guides and verified tackle nerds who love helping anglers elevate their craft. If you're in the Phoenix area, we'd love to have you stop by our showroom and check out the wonderful world of Megabass and the Hookup for yourself. If you shop online, there are almost 10,000 SKUs of Megabass products alone, with hundreds of other companies and new products being added daily. So next time you're looking for that hard to find bait, that color your fish have never seen before, or maybe you just want to elevate your game, look at thehookuptackle.com. Welcome back, my friends. I am Ben with the Hookup Tackle, Tackle Otaku on Instagram, being joined by my buddy Jeffrey the King. We're the Hookup Tackle USA. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning to you, dude.
Today we're talking about lipless.
Lipless crankbait.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Things that make a lot of noise usually.
That's so loud.
Are you ready? So, why do you throw lipless instead of a regular crankbait?
Grass.
Grass is a good one. Any other things come to mind?
Nope.
I don't know why I'm asking a bug guy
Yeah.
this question. Why do I throw a floating bug instead of a suspending bug, Jeff?
Well, the floating bug is when the hatch happens, the bugs kind of float to the top.
Okay, yeah, you lost me. All right. You know what? We'll do a special episode for you. All right, let's talk about some lipless cranks. So, every year, usually in the winter and as we get into pre-spawn, the lipless crankbait really heats up. Now, some of you guys live in places where they eat lipless year-round, and that's awesome. We happen to live in one of those states where they eat lipless year-round if you fish it in correct ways. So today we're going to kind of break down some of our favorite baits. We're going to talk about how we fish them, where we fish them, and hopefully that will shed some light on some tips and tricks that maybe you guys can do this upcoming season so you guys can catch a bunch of lipless fish. Now, in case you are new to this category, when we say lipless, this is what we're talking about. It is basically a crankbait without a lip, right? So usually a crankbait will have some kind of lip that comes down that has the ability to make the bait move and swim side to side. A lipless is basically a lip-free version that usually has some type of flat head or something on the bait that causes it to have a built-in side-to-side movement. This thing is going to swim side to side. It's going to make all kinds of noise as it moves. It's going to rattle, right? That's what we're talking about. So typically when they key in on lipless, what we're looking for is we're looking to fish these in areas that a traditional crankbait can't be fished in. If I had the choice to get them on a lipless or a regular crankbait, I'm usually going with a crankbait. I just think it's a little bit easier to fish. I just have a lot of confidence in it. But there are times when the fish get super keyed in on shad and you've got to throw a lipless because the profile matches. There are times when they get super keyed in on sound, and we're going to talk about different sounds here in some of these baits. Sometimes they want a real high-pitched sound. Sometimes they want a really low-pitched sound. Sometimes they don't want any sound at all. They want it to be really quiet, right? Sometimes we got to fish it like what Jeff mentioned in grass, right? So a traditional crankbait is just going to dive too deep, whereas a lipless is one that we can kind of tick the grass, then we can rip it out so it comes out and it falls back down, it comes out. We can yo-yo it on the bottom. We can even drag some of these like a jig along the bottom, and as they're moving, they're just making that noise as they go along the bottom. Drives fish crazy this time of the year for us. So let's talk about it. Let's just start right here. This would be a perfect transition in to the lipless category. So let's break down a few baits. I'm going to go through some of our favorites. In my hand is a Lucky Craft LV 500. So I think this is probably the best place to always start when we're talking about lipless. As you guys can see, there is a combination of different glass tungsten and brass beads inside of there. There's different sizes, there's different shapes. So you have a handful of brass beads up in the top that are going to give a real high-pitched sound. and then you can hear like a real low pitch rattle, and that's that tungsten banging against the side. So you get a combination of 2 or 3 different sounds going on in there with an LV500. Now, 9 million different colors, right? As the fish get real fired up in pre-spawn, that's when your red colors are really gonna become effective. And this is really, I would say, where most people really start diving into the lipless, is every year when they start really keying in on those spring craws, fire craws, any of that red type color, you can absolutely just destroy them. The LV500 for me is a dragging lipless, okay? You can fish it doing any of the things that we just talked about. You can rip it out of grass, you can straight retrieve this thing. But for me, where this bait shines is to throw it on the bottom and just drag it around like a jig. Now, typically we would do this in places where it's kind of sandier bottom. It rips out of grass really well. You can drag it and bang it around rocks. Just keep in mind that you do have 2 treble hooks on there. So if there's lots of wood, if there's rocks, if there's cages, that kind of stuff, it is going to find every one of those things, okay? So this is one of those baits that you are definitely going to want to bring replacement trebles with you, and you will probably be putting replacement trebles on 2 or 3 times a day while you're fishing if you are dragging it around. Now, typically I would throw this thing on heavier line, 20 pound, 18 pounds, something heavy, so that if this does snag into something, I can give it a steady pull and hopefully just bend my hook out, bring it back in, either rebend it or change that hook, and I'm back fishing. So I'm not super concerned about losing these. You are gonna go through a couple of them a trip if you're dragging them on the bottom, but you're gonna be dragging this thing on the bottom and creating a sound and a look where everybody else is throwing a jig or a worm or something else. This is just gonna give you a totally different look. So LV500, if I only had one, this is the one I'm getting, okay? It's probably the most versatile one. So that's usually my starting point. Now, within the Lucky Craft line, they also make a bait called an LV150. Okay, so the LV150 is just a smaller version of the LV500. So you have a 3/4 ounce bait here, and you have a 1/2 ounce bait here. It's just a little bit smaller version. So the LV150 is gonna act very similar to this guy, just in a smaller, more natural profile. Again, lots of cool colors that you can get in it. So either one of those would be great starting points. Now, also in the Lucky Craft line, they make a series called the LV RTO. Okay, now the LV RTO is a little bit different body shape than the LV500. You notice it's a little bit wider on top, a little bit more round up top, and then thinner on the bottom. Okay, this one is designed to fall similar to like a red eye shad from Strike King, where it's going to have more of a horizontal shimmy as it falls. So this is a great one for kind of yo-yoing or lifting and drop up through grass. If you're really trying to get it in grass and rip it and then let it fall back down, this would be a perfect one for that, because as it comes up, it's going to vibrate hard, and then as it falls, it's going to vibrate the same on the way down. So you're going to get that same up, same down, same up, same down. So if you're dragging or more cast and wind, I would go with the LV500 or 150. If you're yo-yoing, the LV RTO is a great one just because it maintains that horizontal fall. Now, jumping over, let's switch it up a little bit. Megabass also makes an amazing one for fishing on the bottom. So out here, we fish lakes like Clear Lake, Lake Havasu, right? These are lakes that are traditional lipless killers, right? And traditionally we fish them along the bottom a lot. Now the Vibration X Ultra from Megabass is going to have a different weight system, so it's going to have a keeled weight in the belly, also a fixed weight in the head, and then it has little tungsten beads on the front and then glass beads in the middle, and then you notice these little tiny little beads. These are, I call them shad click beads. So you put it together and it's a much higher pitch sound, right? So here's a Vibration X Ultra. Here's the LV500. Right, so that little bit of difference can be huge, especially if you're fishing a place where lipless is kind of a staple. Right, if you go out to Clear Lake or Havasu or a lake by you guys where lipless is just what you do during certain seasons, the fish will get accustomed to certain sounds. This higher pitch seems to work really, really good in that colder water. So generally speaking, the higher pitch these rattles go, and the same would be applicable for a crankbait, a jerkbait, a topwater. Generally, the colder the water, the better that higher sound is. It's just going to be closer, imitating those little shad movements, those shad clicks, the vertebrae and the clicking around. This is going to be a little bit closer to it. So again, I'm going to fish this one the same way I'm fishing that LV 500. I'm dragging it around, I'm banging it around, I'm throwing on heavier lines, 16, 18, 20 pound, so that I can bend these hooks out if I snag it on the bottom, and then just replace the hooks as needed. So again, a lot of cool colors in this. That's the Megabass Vibration X Ultra. Okay, another one. This is a old one, but new to a lot of people because it went away for a long time. We got Daiwa to make us a special batch for the holidays. This is one that's been in my box for literally decades, the TD Vibration from Daiwa. And they make two versions. They make a glass version and a woofer version, which is basically a one knock, right? So this is one that for me is going to be more of a cast and wind. Okay, so those first couple we talked about were really more of like a drag type technique. The TD Vibration for me is a great one to just throw around. I just want to cast it around, wind it in, fish it just like I would a regular crankbait or a spinnerbait. I'm just going to kind of give it some different movements, maybe let it fall every once in a while, straight retrieve. But there's something about this sound and the tightness of this thing moving that the fish really relate to. Now, if they want a lower pitched one knocker, then you've got this option in the woofer as well. There's two different sizes in this, a 65 and a 72. I like the 72, it's more of a traditional 3/4 ounce, 65 is a ½ ounce, but just a killer bait that are not available all the time. So definitely worth scooping up. If you guys like that lower pitch sound, the Jackall TN series, like a TN80, is a great one for that. Now, this one's a little bit unique because it has a little bit of a tungsten chin on it. Now, I don't throw the TN series that much. I find that I have better success personally with the LV, with the Vibration X Ultra, but the TN series is one of our best-selling baits, and a lot of guys just absolutely destroy them on this thing. So it's certainly one that's worth keeping on the radar. A little bit different shape. You can hear that one knock in there, but then you see this kind of tungsten chin on there. As that hits and bangs around on the rocks, that is creating sound also that these other ones aren't. So you're getting a different action, a different sound, again, from this guy banging around. So it could be a great option to add into the lineup. A couple more to show you. The Raid Level Vibe, this is a super popular one, both in Japan and here in our store. This is a unique one because it's designed to swim perfectly horizontal, but it's also designed to stand up. So if you guys like to lift and drop, this is a really special one because it will, get out of my finger, you notice that all the weight is in the head here, right? And these top two cavities are air. So you got a couple of glass beads. So it's much more subtle than those other ones. You still get some noise, but not quite the super loud. And on a straight retrieve, it's gonna come in just like this, so perfectly horizontal. But as you lift and drop, it will actually stand up just like this as it lands. So most of these other ones, like an LV 500, once it lays on the ground, it just falls over. This one will kind of stay up, which just gives it a different look again. So some really cool colors in there. That could be a solid option. And then finally in this category, we'll talk about the Deps MS Vibration, one of the most popular ones in Japan, really designed, again, similar to the LV RTO series from Lucky Craft, really designed as a lift and drop type bait. Two different versions here. There's a rattle version, and then there's kind of a one knock version. They call it the TG. Right, so you got that one kind of knock in there. Again, this is one that's gonna have a fixed tungsten keel system on the bottom. So the entire bottom of this bait, if you can see there on that transparent, is going to be weight. So it's gonna keep it completely keeled. So as it pulls up on a lift and drop, as it pulls up, it's vibrating hard. As it falls, it's vibrating hard on the way down as well. And then there are some little kind of glass rattles in there for rattling around. Again, a great cold water bait. I think you guys will catch a ton of fish on there. So that is the Deps MS Vibration. Now, there are times when the fish want this presentation. They want something ripped in and out of grass. They want to drug around the bottom, but they're laying off the sound. Same thing happens with topwater, Jeff, right? Like towards the end of topwater season, they've heard so many shower blows, kick knockers, that big knock that they still want to eat up. But once they hear that sound, they're like, nope, I've been down that path, right? And the same thing will happen with your lipless, right? After enough guys have thrown them, they will just shy away from the sound. So I'm gonna talk real quick about a couple of great silent options that will allow you to extend your season and give them an offering that might be different than some of the other guys out on the lake. So Duo makes a great one called the Apex Vibe. Now this originally was only available in a 100 size, but it's now also available in an 85 size, okay? The Apex Vibe, if you can see on the back of the package here, there are different compartments built into the bait. This allows the bait to have a great action. It allows you to lift and drop the bait and stay horizontal, but it's a great one also just for casting around because of the ability to where all you're really gonna hear is just the shifting, right? And then here's the 100. So gone are all those loud rattles. Nothing, right? So you've got either a totally silent or a next to silent with just that little bit of shifting in there. So it gives you a completely different look. Now, this would be a great one for you live scopers as well, because you already have a ton of sound going out with all the transducers and everything going. Now you can throw something that is great on a lift and drop, also great on a straight retrieve. So it just gives you a couple of different options there. So there's the Apex Vibe from Duo. And two more, Jeff, and we'll talk about rods real quick. Nishine makes a bait called the Simcoe. Now, Simcoe is kind of a hybrid between a lipless and a blade bait, okay? So it's designed much thinner, more like a blade bait, but it swims and moves and cuts through grass the same way a lipless would. Now you can see that it has a fixed weight system in there. You can see it's a much thinner bait. So if you guys are fishing around grass, especially deep grass, this can be an awesome one. You can get it down in that deeper grass, you can rip it out, you can lift and drop, and it's totally silent, right? So you're gonna be able to present it in a way to where they can feel the vibration, they can feel everything that's going on, they can see everything that's going on, but you're not gonna scare the fish from all those rattles. Available in a regular and a heavyweight version. So depending on how deep you're fishing or how fast you want it to sink, you have a couple of options there, okay? So that's the Simcoe from Nishine. And then in a very similar style, you have from Raid the Level Vibe Boost. Now again, this is kind of a hybrid between a blade bait and a lipless bait. Take it out and I'll show it to you. So where most blade baits are made out of like a metal material, this is going to be an ABS version. So you can fish it like a blade bait or you can fish it like a lipless. So either way it works. Tie straight on, it's going to vibrate hard just like a lipless. You can lift and drop, and again, it's going to give you that same kind of head up that the original Level Vibe did, only it's totally silent because it's just a hard piece of ABS plastic. So a couple of different looks depending on if you want silent, high pitch, low pitch, a lot of different ways to throw them. Let's jump in and talk about the rods really quick. We talked about the line. I'm more of a traditional heavier line because I like to get these things into cover. I like to get them around grass. I like to get them around wood, rock, dragging them on the bottom. So I want to make sure that when I snag that I could give it just a good, solid, heavy pull and bend that hook out, get my bait back and worry about it there. If you guys are fishing in open water, you can certainly go to lighter line. The lighter the line, the more vibration you're going to get from the bait. The heavier the line, it's just going to slow that vibration down a little bit. But all of these vibrate so hard, I don't find that it really affects it much. This is my go-to setup for lipless. This is the Megabass Valkyrie 7.1 medium heavy. This is a fiberglass carbon composite rod, so it's really designed as a crankbait rod. I like this rod because it's soft in that upper section, which is great for the treble hooks once the fish are hooked. But because it's a glass rod, it gives me a lot of power. So if I need to, drag it around, if I need to hop or lift it out of something, it's got a lot of backbone to it. It's not just kind of a limp noodle, right? I like an 8-to-1 gear ratio on most of my lipless. And again, because most of the time that I'm fishing a lipless, I'm either ripping it out of grass or I'm dragging it on the bottom. So anytime I'm dragging it on the bottom and I feel a thunk, I want to be able to wind real quick and move and hit them, right? If I'm ripping it out of grass, I want to be able to wind down and really yank it and be able to pick up my slack line if something eats it right after I yanked it. So this is kind of my go-to setup. Now, the other setup I will use, if the grass is really thick, and I really need to get that bait into the thick stuff and really kind of rip it hard out of there, then I will go to this guy. This is a 7.2 heavy Steez. It's called the Power Pitch, but this ends up being more of a reaction bait rod for me than a pitching rod. It works great for this technique because it's really designed as a pitching rod. So it's a real strong rod, but it has a soft tip, okay? Similar to like the Orochi Perfect Pitch, right? Same kind of idea. I'll throw this on braid if I'm going to really heavy grass, and that braid sometimes will help cut through that grass, and sometimes it can be really important if you just use straight fluoro, like what I'm doing most of the time. If you get it bogged into too much aquatic vegetation, it doesn't really help you rip it, and sometimes you get into such thick stuff that you need that braid to kind of really cut through. So 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 70 pound. I go higher on my braid. I'm usually 65 or 70 pound. It's kind of my sweet spot, but you can go down if you need a little bit more casting distance. Most of these baits are going to weigh ½ ounce, 3/4 ounce, even 1 ounce, and there's not really a lip or anything to prevent them from casting well. So all of them are going to usually throw like a rocket, right? So you can get away with a little bit heavier line and still maintain that casting distance. If you're a Loomis guy, something like an 893 would be a great one. You want the rod to be just a little bit faster, but still have a little bit of a tip. That way, as you're ripping, it's not pulling all the way down here to the bottom, right? So again, if I'm picking one, I'm going with more of a traditional glass rod. But if I really have to rip out of some heavy grass and it's just all day, just, rip and drop, wind down, rip, drop, this makes my life a lot easier because it's a lot stronger of a rod. So that's usually how I just determine which way to go. That for 90% of the time, this for the super heavy grass. All right, guys, that is a wrap. I know that was kind of really quick and threw a lot of stuff out to you. So if you have questions on any of the baits and the setups, how we're fishing these things, drop it down below. I will definitely get some answers for you. Jeff will leave links to the products if you want to check any of them out closer. And if that leads you down a rabbit hole of questions, follow me on Instagram, shoot me a DM. Happy to answer anything I can. So on behalf of myself and Jeff and everybody here at the Hookup Tackle Guys, thank you for your time. Thank you for your business. Thank you for your support. And I hope you catch a ton of lipless fish this season. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace out.